Welcome back. I hope you got a drink or had a snack, maybe played with your dog. I know that I did. I went and played with Lucy. She's so cute. We are going to continue taking a look at this essay. So where we left off was in the middle of that body paragraph about Kalpernia and why hers was ineffective. And remember, we've got those two color highlighters that are going to identify the how, right? The how and the why. So the how being the evidence and the why being the explanation or the warrant. So let's continue here. We kind of left off in the middle of that sentence there. This last one, the last part of the explanation, that why. This appeal to fear, however, was not successful. So Caesar was not successful as Caesar believes himself to be a courageous man. So Kalpernia needs to continue to beg him to stay home. All right, got it. She then chooses, so again I've got my highlighter out, she then chooses a powerful metaphor to try and justify Caesar staying home from the capital. All right, so what is she doing? How is she doing this? Oh, she's got that metaphor, right? That's what she's going to be using. She explains that when beggars die, quote, there are no comets seen, but, quote, the heavens themselves blaze to the death of princes. Again, noting that this part has quotes. It's not just yikes. It's not just summary. There are quotes. The quotes coming 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words, and here's another. This one is actually a clause. But notice how there are no quotes that are complete sentences. These quotes rely on the sentence like the sentence that this student has constructed, rather than saying, quote, there are no comets seen. Got it. That is a quote, but it doesn't rely on anything else. It's just kind of there. Whereas here, it's actually saying that it's providing the context that when beggars die, there is nothing in the heavens to denote that they're dying. So says this quote. But the heavens will actually blaze forth when it's a prince. I mean, the quotes are reliant on the sentence that they are within. Okay, so noticing that, all right, we've got a sentence of evidence here and a couple of sentences of evidence there. Continuing. Here, Kalpernia appeals to Caesar's ego. Oh, definitely, that's an explanation. Claiming that since she is receiving these visions, these blazes from heavens, the god warns of a prince's death. So she brings up his ego by basically calling him a prince, right? Saying that, oh, if you were a nobody, there would be nothing that came up. Nothing would come up in my dreams. There would be no comets. But because you are a prince, the heavens blaze forth and provide me these visions. It is God sent that I see these visions. So she's definitely saying that, look, the heavens think that you're a swell guy. You are like a quote-unquote prince. And so this evidence here proves to me why that's happening, right? And then continuing through the rest of the paragraph, as Caesar begins to relent, Kalpernia continues to argue, appealing to his love for her. Now that doesn't seem like it's all that major because there's like really not a lot of there's like no evidence whatsoever. This is simply well, I suppose it is kind of a how. It's as Caesar begins to she's appealing to his love for her. There's no really explanation, so it kind of like falls off at the end here. Not necessarily the most effective use of paragraph space. However, I want you to just take a look at the layout of this paragraph, right? You'll notice that this paragraph has evidence and evidence and evidence. Now, the most effective uses of evidence has warrant that explains the evidence, has warrant that explains the evidence. And it's not just one piece of evidence. There's 1 and 2, 1 and 2, and then this like little baby 3. But this is like a yucky kind of use of evidence. There's no warrant after it, so it's kind of like just there. So what I do want to do is I just want to focus on the ones that are actually explained here and how effective that they are explained. So there is maybe a line or two of evidence, a few lines of evidence, 2 or 3 lines of of explanation, at least 2 lines of explanation. You have to note that. I want to make sure that you are visually seeing this with your highlights, that there's evidence, there's always explanation, right? And if you were to count these up, it would be about a 50-50 here in terms of the evidence as opposed to explanation. So, continuing throughout this essay, she begs him to stay home for her, and he finally agrees, stating, "For thy humor I will stay." All right, so again, I would also kind of note at the end that so why is this ineffective? So why ineffective? They don't really say much. It just kind of like this paragraph kind of ends at like right at the end. There's no real like ending point as to why this was ineffective. But let's take a look at this next one. This paragraph, this body paragraph talked all about Kalpernia, so I bet you know what the next paragraph is going to discuss. That's Decius. Yes, Decius. All right. So let's see what this student has to say about Decius. So, paying attention here, let's take a look at this topic sentence if it makes an arguable claim, right? However, Decius displays a better understanding of his audience with his argument against Kalpernia's visions. Okay, they are making an argument that Decius is more successful because he better understands his audience. Well, we better see this to be true. Is this an arguable claim? Yes. Now, is this student actually identifying the techniques that are used? No. However, it is very clear where the student intends on going, that this paragraph is going to be all about how this better relates to the audience. This is still an arguable claim, and it is providing that information about the prompt itself. The prompt, if you take a look back at the prompt even brings up, the prompt brings up that understanding of audience is perfectly appropriate to take a look at. So the student actually takes information directly from the prompt to take a look at within the essay. So, let's continue here, keeping in mind that we've got one color for evidence and one color for explanation, the how and the why. So, yellow is for evidence. Since Caesar maintains the leadership of Rome, Decius appeals to his pride and love of country. Now here, that's not really evidence. If anything, that's more of like an explanation as to why why Decius uses this. So actually, here's one of the few instances that you'll actually see more of a explanation than you will the evidence first. That does not make this bad. If anything, it kind of is like setting up the evidence. So this is perfectly appropriate. But then let's see what the next sentence does. Lines 45 through 52. Oh, interesting. Lines 45 through 52 explain how the visions of Romans bathing in Caesar's blood depict the leader as a source for life in the state. So here, the writer has identified that this is a big chunk, right? That's like 7 lines worth of text. I can't regurgitate that into the prompt. I don't have time. That's a lot of space. That would pretty much be my entire paragraph here. So what the student does is instead is he or she then paraphrases. He or she paraphrases or like summarizes, paraphrase what's being said. And if you take a look back at lines 45 through 52, this is most certainly what Decius is doing. He talks about like, oh, you know that blood your wife was talking about? That's not deadly. Those people aren't killing you. You're actually feeding them. If that's not the creepiest compliment you've ever gotten in your that you've ever heard in your life, but he's twisting the words around. And I imagine that this is now going to be talking about how it's discussing pride and love of country. But the evidence is presented there. And again, perfectly appropriate evidence to say in these lines, but then paraphrase those lines. Don't just say, oh yeah, it does in those lines. What happens in those lines, right? So this student does a nice job of providing evidence, but not overwhelming the reader with evidence here. Let's continue reading in this paragraph. Here, Decius is indicating that vision is not symbolizing his death, but his great leadership and ambition. So that, I could see that definitely being part green. Like you could see that as being what he's doing or how he's doing it. But also there's an element of like why he's doing it, right? So discussing that it's symbolizing his death and great leadership and his great leadership and ambition. So I could see that it's more, I would argue that it's more yellow than it is green. It's more evidence than it is explanation. But you cannot deny the fact that that's there, that they're kind of combined there. Continuing. This makes Caesar swell with pride and forget any earlier fear of Kalpernia's vision. That is most certainly the explanation. Why does Decius do this? Because it's going to make him swell with pride, and now there's no more fear. That's why Decius feeds into that pride, is because, he's going to totally get like a big head and know like, that's me as a leader. Identifying that the explanation here isn't as solid as it could be, but the student does provide at least something. So we must give the student credit there. Continuing in this paragraph. Also, the reason why Decius's argument is more persuasive is because it questions Caesar's bravery and masculinity. So again, telling me like why it does this, right? Continuing. Starting at line 60, Decius imagines what other senators will say in response to Caesar's absence. That is definitely evidence. What is Decius doing? What is he doing? He is talking about what other senators will say when Caesar's not there. Then, once hearing of Kalpernia's insistence that Caesar stay home, it would mock apt to be rendered. So saying here that, once everybody hears that Caesar stayed home because Kalpernia told him to, he's going to be mocked, right? Mocking would happen. So that's more evidence there. The vain leader would never allow his courage to be questioned and his leadership to be undermined by his wife or a silly dream. So why does Decius bring up what other people would say about him when they get word that his wife told him to stay home? Oh my gosh, he would definitely not let that happen, because then people are going to be talking. He's ruled by his wife. He's not really a strong leader. So he doesn't want to be undermined, so he's definitely going to show up. And then this concluding statement, by needling Caesar's pride and ego, Decius successfully encourages Caesar to leave the house and thus to his death. So nice concluding statement here. So like, why is all of this important? Well, because take a look. By doing this, he gets him to go and he gets to kill him, right? Cue evil hands and laughing now. I'm pretty sure that's what Decius probably did in the play. That type of thing. So notice again the colors that are going on in this body paragraph, that it's a nice mix of yellow and green. It is not just saying, look at this info, look at this info, look at all this stuff I've got for you, look at all this that I found. No. There is a mix between the evidence and the explanation. And taking note that this evidence is particularly used effectively in terms of how it's presented. So it's not just a big quote. It's line 60 here, talking about what the other senators would do. Sorry, I didn't mean for that to be green, but so it's in line 60, and this is a nice summary, right? A summary or a paraphrase of what was said. A paraphrase is quite effective because it not only gets to the point immediately as opposed to quoting directly, it also conveys that you understand the text. So an added bonus there. However, quotes, as we've seen here and in previous paragraphs, in this paragraph, we've seen how those quotes can most certainly be effective within the sentence themselves. So never undermining or forgetting the importance of these. So in the next thing, we'll talk about conclusions.